Okay. You can't fix stupid, but ignorance is definitely a lifestyle choice. In my research today, believe it or not, I actually discovered that Donald Trump does not drink. He considers himself a teetotaler. My first question is, where did the brain damage come from if it wasn't alcohol?
Well, as far as being a teetotaler, myself, I can kind of agree with you there. I don't need to drink in order to be all brain damaged. Because after all, ignorance is a lifestyle choice, and I'm proud of the choices I make in life. I am. So, yeah, and actually I got a new choice now. I've chosen to be non-binary and a trans woman. So what that means, as a trans woman, I can legally go into the women's bathrooms. So if I ever see a really, really beautiful woman, I can just follow her in there and she can say, "Get out of there." "Oh, no, I'm a trans woman."
With your luck, she will be too.
Yeah, with my luck, she would be too.
Anyway, I was going to ask you about that. I noticed the other day I was in a building and one of the restrooms was labeled unisex, and I didn't know if that was just to have sex with yourself or what. I don't quite understand that term.
Well, when you get as old as me, it's unisex. You just don't get any.
God, that's terrible. But I happened to run into a guy I've known for several years, Bill Mahalik. Last Thursday night, he was all the way in that movie with me I was telling you about. Well, he likes to write jokes. He's quite an accomplished joke writer. He has sold some of his stuff. He's not allowed to say to who, but he has sold some of his stuff. He used to send me that he used to set himself a goal of 3 jokes a day. Boom. And I'd get him in emails, and so would several other people. Well, for some reason, he's backed off. He puts them on Facebook now, and they're still called Bill's Pills. And you can still find him there. But he happened to make me think of a few of his comments, and one of them I just love because he starts out like we try to, more or less. Get a newspaper, look at the headlines. Then he gives you his take on some of them. And these are supposed to be true, right? The first part. For the 4th consecutive time, a pit bull won the election for mayor of Rabbit Hash, Kentucky, beating a cat, a chicken, a donkey, and a little boy. And Bill says, even that little town had a better slate of candidates than we did in the last presidential election.
Yeah, that's true. And he's got something said. But you say he used to write 3 jokes a day. So it basically 2 hours per joke, that's 6 hours, and then he has a 2-hour lunch. That's a pretty good work job if you can get it.
Yeah, especially if you can get paid for it, but you don't get paid like you'd like to, Here's this particular day, there were 3 out of 5 that I wanted to comment on. At the state capitol in Little Rock, Arkansas, which I believe abuts Kansas. I don't know. I'm not sure of my geography. A man drove his car into a newly erected granite slab with the 10 Commandments on, and he shattered the slabs. Because of budget constraints, state officials decided to leave the pieces where they fell and just erect a sign saying Moses slipped.
Oh, man, I would have loved to have been the man responsible for that idea and getting it accepted. That's kind of like, one of the things you can be proud of in the afterlife,
Depending where you go, I don't think you're going to have, some of us are going to have anything that we're going to want to talk about. So here's another one that just got me. On this date in history, June 29th, this was 1929, the first high-speed tunnel is completed at Langley Field in California. They didn't need to do one on the East Coast because Washington, D.C. was already there.
Okay.
Do I need to explain to you?
Yeah, I didn't miss that one.
All the hot air coming out of Washington, D.C., coming out at a huge volume, They don't need a wind tunnel on the East Coast. They just take the airplanes down there and have the politicians talk into a tunnel.
Yeah, well, ignorance is a lifestyle choice, and I've made it, and I'm sticking with it. Yeah, ignorance is a lifestyle choice. See, all you proud, be ignorant, be proud. Go Goombas.
Were you a writer for Jersey Shore years ago?
I wish. No.
Okay, here's one that really tickled me. At the Cheyenne Mountain Resort in Colorado Springs, a 73-year-old woman drove into the swimming pool in her car. Witnesses said they're just thankful she wasn't going in her bikini.
Oh, that's a groaner, you know. Yeah, you know, I remember one time some teenagers threw a mattress in the swimming pool, you know. It didn't float well.
They probably just wanted to try having a waterbed. Oh, that's bad, huh? One more, and then we're going to move on to more of our regular type stuff. In a recent newspaper editorial, a North Korean official said that Donald Trump is a psychopath. And Bill's take? That's disgusting. Once again, more classified information is being leaked from the White House.
Yeah, you know, besides being a trans woman, I should go for psychopath too. Do you get more tax deductions if you're a psychopath?
I think you only get the additional deductions if you're a multiple personality.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll have to work at that one. I'll have to get me a psychologist and have him train me.
Have to get a personality.
Yeah, 2 or 3 or 4.
I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that, John. But I couldn't help myself.
Well, that's fine. It's, you know, if you're not picking on me, you'll be picking on the chicken. And, you know, the chicken told me the other day to take some of the brunt because the chicken's, he's got small shoulders, if you can see.
He's got no shoulders.
Chicken's got small shoulders, whereas I got large, small shoulders, so I can take this stuff. And all he can do is go, whereas I can do a couple more extra voices.
Quick question, folks. Tell us what color that chicken was. Little hint. Okay, John, hand me back the chicken, and I want to show people. Now what color is it? Now, does that look orange or what?
Yeah,
and yet, over there, John, he looks yellow.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that blue dress, white dress thing there was on. I mean, like, who cares, you know?
He's a camellia chicken.
Well, they had karma chameleon. Why not chicken chameleon?
Yeah. Yeah.
That one took you a while, didn't it?
Oh, gosh. Gosh.
You're the one that started it. You started talking about trans this and trans that and just plain confused.
Yeah, and translation is another one I should do. And transference, where I blame you folks in the audience for all my problems.
Or transfusion. There was a song called, no, I'm sorry, it was about the same time as a song called The Tuttle, which was about a car. But there was a song years ago called Transfusion that I just loved. Very obscure. It's not on YouTube or anything, but it's out there.
Boy, not even on YouTube. I think we just set a world record. There's very few things not on YouTube, you know.
I actually, when I first started playing with YouTube, there's a guy called Bob Lind that had a really big hit song called Elusive Butterfly. Well, that was on. At the time, I didn't realize he put out 4 or 5 albums, but one of the albums I had of his, I could only find the Elusive Butterfly on it. There were several other songs, because the guy's a very comedic writer. He's got one song called The World Is Just a B-Movie, and it's really funny. But none of these things, Truly, Julie Blues, and a couple others, at the time weren't on YouTube. Now I can find them. There's even, believe it or not, most people don't know this. Not Bob Seger. What's the great country's western song? Did "Island in the Stream"? The guy singer with Dolly Parton. Kenny Rogers.
Oh yeah.
Kenny Rogers started out as a rock and roller, and he put out one song that was mildly popular called "I Get a Funny Feeling," with a woman singer. And if you look hard enough, you can find it. Beautiful song.
I guess it's all in how you can market yourself the best way, and it's like those one way you can tell about a what do you call them, a psychopath. One way you can tell is when you're in a room with somebody and you think you're in with a psychopath, get yourself in the mood and yawn. And if they never yawn when you do, they're a psychopath because they're unaffected by your social cues.
I don't know if it's true or not, but on CSI or Criminal Minds or something, a couple times they made the comments that you can't give teenagers mental tests because until they're about approximately 25, depending on the person, of course, they will all test out as psychopaths.
Yeah, and now probably until they're 35, because you don't get socialized playing with a computer screen. You just don't.
I understand somebody's trying to breed a whole new group of people with no thumbs, so that stuff will all go away.
Well, the good ones actually use their fingers, boy. And my kids can use their thumbs, but I think it's a new species that can use their fingers on that.
Maybe that's why God gave us opposable thumbs. Us, and I think raccoons have them, and I believe that's all. As far as I know, none of the other simians have them.
Yeah. Well, wow. Now, how about bats? Do they have opposable thumbs?
Louisville?
Yeah.
Folks, if you caught that, more power to you. That was really obtuse.
Yeah. Well, it's better to catch it than to be hit by it. It's a Louisville slugger, But yeah, it's these cell phones. These are something else, I want to see when they start giving the kids cell phones when they're 12 months old. Give them their own phone numbers.
They actually have them. I believe some guy in Japan, you can implant them into your body so it's always there, and it literally will run off the electrical system in your body. Can you imagine that?
Boy, and then you could never say, well, I left my phone in the other room. You'd have to take every call. I mean, that would be worth jumping off the bridge for,
That would, what would be fun is keep calling the guy hanging up on him.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know.
I know. We're starting to get a little strange, I think.
Yeah.
You want to move into a Darwin Award then?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Here's change the tone.
Here's one, and this is confirmed true by Darwin. Slippery when wet. In Sweden.
Yeah.
There was early one morning, two men broke into a gymnasium high school east of Stockholm. After a profitable stroll through the building, they were started by a janitor. They raced out of the building into the pre-dawn darkness. Fearing imminent detection, they took a shortcut to safety, down the face of a steep 55-foot rock escarpment. But in selecting this convenient shortcut, they failed to consider three crucial facts. First, it was pitch black. Due to the northern latitude, the sun rises late in Sweden. Second, it had rained during the night. And third, the rock in eastern Sweden is granite, the type of rock that is polished into posh floors and fancy countertops. The danger of slippery granite is well known for residents of the area. So, of course, when they went down, one of the guys went down, and that was his last trip. And they didn't even bury him with his ill-gotten gains. The other guy somehow survived. He was probably number 2,
Probably landed on the first guy. Cushioned his fall.
Yes. Softened his fall, right?
Once more, it just proves that if these people weren't ignorant, which is, they're too darn lazy to educate themselves, they would have known all these things. They would have had an escape route planned. There wouldn't have been any panic, and they wouldn't have got hurt. They would live to rob again.
Yeah, they could have gotten a rope and anchored it up on, put a anchor bolt in there and gone down the rock face with the rope on there, and the janitor wouldn't come after him. In the dark, he's going to find a rope, and you think he's going to rappel down. No, he's going to go back inside, call the cops, and sit down and have a cup of coffee while he waits for him.
Well, that sounds like the sensible, intelligent, sane thing to do, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I don't even drink coffee, but in that situation, I think I'd even sit down and fake like I was drinking coffee.
Well, I find that one of the more interesting Darwins. The one that I really loved, though, was the one a few episodes back where the guy was in Florida and he was in a traffic jam, he had to go to the bathroom, so he hopped over the retaining wall, and there was nothing on the other side of it for 65 feet.
Yeah, and I honestly believe that he relieved himself before he hit the ground.
You know what? I'm 100% sure you're right.
Now if he was really, really drunk or really, really stoned, he might have held it until he hit the ground, But if he was just normal, he'd be like, oh, crap. I just can't imagine that. But eventually, some year, I'll wind up in the locker room of life, and I'll talk to him and ask him, hey, Blood, what up?
After all these things we find it, and they're all reported by the news media one way or another. All I can think of is no matter what happens, we get up there, we're going to be looking at people and laughing so hard, we won't even have to worry about anything.
Yeah, I imagine people are going to be laughing at me too, but you gotta entertain people if you're going to expect to be entertained. What goes around comes around.
I don't know about you, John, although I'm pretty sure, because I know a lot of other people have done the same thing. There are times I've done something so ignorant, so lacking in any kind of forethought, that when I did injure myself, just the total absurdity of it made me start laughing no matter how bad it hurt. Just how did I do something that dumb?
Offhand, I can't think of, I guess my gene that it keeps me from embarrassing myself is functioning today, and I can't think of any of the particulars of the things that I've done that have been embarrassing.
I didn't know they had a gene for that.
Yeah, they're from Wranglers.
I don't know. I still sometimes I think back at the time now this is in the state of Michigan, folks. At the end of January one year, I bought a motorcycle and decided to ride it home that day. And I look back on it now and I think, wow, that wasn't necessarily the most thoughtful thing, especially considering how many friends I have with pickup trucks and trailers and everything. But no, I just decided to ride it home about 50 miles in probably 10-degree weather. And I look back at it now, it's funny as heck, and all I can think of is, geez, if there was such a thing as a time machine, I would go back in time and I would slap the heck out of myself for more than one thing that I did.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, that I've been lucky. The Lord's blessed me, and I haven't wound up on Darwin reports, because there's things I could have wound up on the reports for.
Well, there's a whole lot of things that none of us really talk about anymore because we're unsure of the statute of limitations.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
If I don't remember toward the end, I'd like to. We've got about 10 minutes left. I'd really like to award the Chicken Award today to Gretchen Whitmer, our new governor.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we do it right now?
Yeah.
Gretchen, this is for you today. You know why? For coming up with the same stupid, hackneyed, unthought out solutions for our bad roads. You got elected on the premise that I'm going to fix the roads. And what's the first thing you want to do? Raise taxes more? My first question is, If you raise the taxes, once the roads are finally fixed, where's that extra money going to go? That's number one. Number two is why in the world, because these roads didn't go bad overnight or even in a year or two, where was the responsibility, accountability of all the other people that were in charge for all those years and just ignored the problem? But Jennifer, I'm sorry, Granholm, that's another... but then she was pretty well castigated in the media, so I'll just leave her alone. Gretchen Whitmer, if this is the best you can come up with, I think you really, really deserve our chicken award. As we give it...
Cock-a-doodle-doo.
Don't break it, John. Now we are going to move on, and I think I'm going to go through a few of these that I found somewhat humorous.
Yeah, and let me make one more about our darling governor. The other thing is she says she's going to throw more money into education. Now, I want to find somebody who will take a bet with me that the first thing they do when they put more money in education is vote a raise to the superintendents and all the administrators.
Oh, you mean all the overhead that doesn't really produce anything viable?
Yeah, that's the first thing they're going to do when they get more money. And, I wonder if the Vegas would take a line on it. I should call them up and see. I get in to see about, I'll bet $10,
Well, number one, your wife won't let you have $10. So.
You didn't have to tell them.
Here's one that tickled me. Oxnard, California. A homeless shelter has 100 new bunk beds largely paid for by legal cannabis dispensaries in neighboring Port Hueneme. I can't say that name. Hueneme. Well, my first thought on that is, now we have a homeless shelter for all the kids to go to where their mothers kicked them out of the basement for not getting a job and just playing video games all day.
Yeah. And, I think they should make more homeless shelters, and they should put TVs in it and give them free dope and rice and potato chips. And you know what? Then they'll really be short on, if you give them all that stuff and feed them there, they won't even need to come out to get their welfare checks,
That's one of the things that gets me is, you know what? I'm not going to get into it. It's just, I start getting up. I didn't bring in my soapbox today anyway. I left it at home. Here's another fun one.
I'm too dirty to have a soapbox.
Denver, Colorado. The State Department of Transportation's intercity bus service has expanded rapidly since its debut in 2015. You notice how well I'm enunciating today?
Yeah. What'd you do?
I got talked to. Like I said, I saw myself on film, and I realized that I needed to get myself back in gear if I'm going to be talking that much. Anyhow, but the Denver Post reports that Bustang service, don't ask me why they came up with a ridiculous name like Bustang instead of Mustang. The service is struggling to find drivers for a relatively low-paying job in an ultra-low unemployment environment where legal marijuana adds another barrier to recruitment. In other words, folks, it sounds like Colorado and California are going to join into one state, one great big, what's it going to be called? Coloradofornia?
Well, that's a good name anyway. I still
sounds too much like the one with David, what's his name, in Californication.
I still like that Colorado is going to make LSD legal. I mean, too bad Timothy Leary's dead. He should be here to see this, And then, what we really need to do is get a presidential debate in Colorado and give them all ice water drinks, and they all drink that stuff. And then an hour later after the thing, they're going, woo,
That's actually probably a pretty good idea, a good way to whittle down the slate of Democratic candidates. Anybody that's still coherent after a half an hour obviously shouldn't get elected.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I could, but then if you measured me, I've been
Against what?
I've been incoherent from the start, so you'd never know if I was stoned or not.
Well, moving on. Hartford, Connecticut. Lawmakers weighed this week whether to enable young people to receive preventive medication for HIV infection without their parents' consent. Well, you know darn well that they're going to engage in sexual congress without their parents' consent. So I don't see why you even have to ask. Just give them the freaking protection.
Yeah, give them the protection because they're not going to raise their kids right anyway.
Well, that's a whole nother thing, and I got a real thing about how I'd say, but I think our generation is the one that really started screwing everything up, and it just got worse. Here's one I got to comment on. So, Wilmington, Delaware. Christiana Care health system patients can now access their medical records through their iPhones as the organization becomes the first health system in the state to partner with Apple, giving a whole new meaning to the term, an apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Oh, yeah. And what are the, but then we're going to have all the people upset because they have Android phones and they need a cute saying too.
Moving on. Cape Coral, Florida. Move over, Tallahassee. Cape Coral is now more populous than the capital, making it the state's 8th largest city. And by going by demographics, the 6th oldest.
Yeah. So they're the 6th oldest. So what?
Wait a minute. Here's one that just really got my brain going. Atlanta, Georgia. The Georgia House has overwhelmingly passed a proposal that would legalize programs giving drug users clean needles in exchange for used ones. Personally, I'd much rather see them give them clean underwear in exchange for used.
Yeah, well, clean needles, the next thing you know, the diabetics should all protest that and say, hey, we want free insulin too.
Oddly enough, I just noticed this morning on the news that one of the drug companies is lowering the price of their insulin.
Oh, well, don't worry. Some relative of a senator will buy them and increase the price by 600%.
Okay. Here's another one that, the one about the Georgia and the clean underwear just made more sense to me than a clean needle. Honolulu, Hawaii. Lawmakers are considering legislation that would impose fines on trespassing hikers who require rescue. I think it would just make more sense that if a trespassing hiker needed rescue, you hang up the phone.
Ooh, that's kind of tough, but I guess I kind of like that, make people responsible for themselves again.
Exactly. Years ago, I took a geology course from a guy who had a doctorate. He'd written a book in geology, all this stuff. Anyway, he was telling me that there were places in the state parks out west where you were not allowed, Americans now, were not allowed to take their children unless they put in one of those leather harnesses with the leads and everything to be sure if they got too close to the edge, they could keep them from going over. He said what they told him is that children from other nations were so much better behaved that they didn't need to do that. And we are down to 25 seconds.
Well.
So here we go.
Bye-bye.